Hi guys, this is our next video in the Avoiding Plagiarism Unit series. If you have not watched the Avoiding Plagiarism Introduction video or the Avoiding Plagiarism Part 1 Exercise 1 video from previous classes, please go back and do that, or I guarantee you're going to be lost in some sense, jumping right into what is our third part of the unit. So today, I'm going to have you, once you're caught up from previous videos, have a paper and pencil ready, just as you did with part 1, exercise 1, because we're going to work on paraphrasing today, and your assignment is going to require you to paraphrase a section, and that's going to turn into your assignment to go with this video. So if you don't have a paper and pencil ready, please go and fetch that before we begin. So that being said, we're going to start off paraphrasing with reading this article called The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler. I have it attached to the next slide of the video, and we're going to go through that together, so you can pause and read that if you want to. Also, I have it attached as a PDF to today's online agenda on Google Classroom. So let's jump in and read The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler by Jason Morey. Now, if you notice at the bottom, there's also the website that The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler was published on the fake website, The Interesting Times, October 4th, 2015, at the website interesting.com/sumo. So we're going to start here in paragraph 1. If you've ever seen a sumo wrestling match, you might have thought it was pretty simple. Large men stomping around in a ring, bashing into each other in a test of brute strength. But a closer look at the wrestlers' daily lives shows us that every moment is planned out, each hour designed for excellence in this ancient sport. Most wrestlers live together in a dormitory called a stable. Their day begins around 5 a.m. when they rise from bed, arrange their hair into top knots, and put on their traditional loincloth. Next come chores. Some wrestlers prepare the food for later in the day, while others sweep and clean the practice area. When these tasks are done, training begins. The wrestlers stretch, then do hard physical training for 3 to 4 solid hours. Their regimen includes drills, weightlifting, and going head-to-head in their own wrestling matches. You may have noticed breakfast wasn't mentioned. That's because the wrestlers have to skip it. Skipping meals slows the body's metabolism, resulting in weight gain. And most wrestlers want to do this. Sumo wrestling has no weight limit, so bigger players have an edge. Once they finally eat at lunchtime, the meals can be as much as 10,000 calories, mostly in the form of a stew of meat, vegetables, and noodles. After lunch, the wrestlers take naps in order to keep as many calories in their bodies as possible. 3 hours later, the training begins again, followed by another massive evening meal, then preparations for bed. The next day, they will start all over again, renewing their commitment to a tradition that is anything but simple. Okay, so in part 1 we met a fictional character named Joe. Today we're going to meet Eva. Eva is supposed to create a presentation about sumo wrestlers, and this article that we just read is one of her sources. One of the things she wants to include is a list of things the wrestlers do in their training sessions. So in the article we read, the author has already given a good list, so she's just going to paraphrase that. Now in part 1 we summarized. Today in part 2 we are going to paraphrase. Notice the orange is the section we're going to look at here. She'll use the same idea, but she won't use the same exact language word for word as the article. So here's how those two compare. Top is the article, bottom is what Eva writes. Article. The wrestlers stretch, then do hard physical training for 3 to 4 solid hours. Their regimen includes drills, weightlifting, and going head-to-head in their own wrestling matches. Eva says a typical training can last up to 4 hours and involves stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. She didn't copy the exact words, but the ideas are pretty much the same. Again, as in the previous 2 videos, the orange text are same sorts of things, either word for word, at least same ideas. The black text are independent of each other. So they talk about stretching, they talk about hours, they talk about drills, weightlifting, and matches. Otherwise, the words change somewhat. So because the idea really came straight from that article, Eva should give credit to the author. So that's paraphrasing. There's 2 ways that she can do this. Here's one way. First, she gives credit to the author. according to writer Jason Morey. A typical training can last up to 4 hours and involves stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. Or, another way she can do it here, in his article, and then she gives the title of the article, quote, The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler, comma, quote, Jason Morey, author, explains that a typical training can last up to 4 hours and involves stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. So she just gives credit to the author in the first type. She gives credit to the article and the author in the second type. Now, you're going to try this. You are going to write a sentence where you paraphrase the wrestler's early morning activities. And I have those highlighted in orange here, the 2 middle paragraphs on the left column. And in your sentence, you need to give credit to the author. So somewhere in what you're writing down, you should say Jason Morey. So here's the article, and again, you're only looking at the 2 middle paragraphs here, and you're coming up with a 1-sentence paraphrase saying what the sumo wrestlers do for their early morning routines. And if you need to look at the worksheet here, again, this is how to paraphrase, and then these are some ideas to get you going if you get stuck. So I'm going to come back to the article. You're going to look at these 2 sections here and write down a 1-sentence paraphrase saying what those sumo wrestlers do for their early morning activities. Pause the video if need be. Okay, when you're finished, please go back and check to make sure, did you give credit to the author? Did you mention Jason Morey? If not, you need to. Did you mention that author's name and or the article title, The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler? Did you put that title in quotation marks? If you haven't, now's the time to go back and do that. Now, what if you do want to use the writer's exact words? That is going to be our next video on direct quoting. Before we get to that point, the Part 2 assignment is a formal email. Now remember, you wrote me a formal email for the Part 1 assignment on the Venus flytraps. Today, what you wrote down, you're going to give me that sentence where you paraphrase the sumo wrestler's early morning activities, and you're giving credit to the author, Jason Morey. So I have given an example for you to follow, but on a topic different from sumo wrestlers. And this is what that formal email should look like to me for the assignment. So you're going to address that. Let me move my box here. You're going to address that to me at shall@carolk12.org with your email address, your name, your subject. You're going to put sumo wrestler paraphrase. For my example, I'm writing about something else. Dear Mrs. Hall, this is my formal email about blah, blah, blah. You should be putting sumo wrestlers for Part 2. In the article, you give me your article title. You give me your author. Then you paraphrase what you found about sumo wrestlers' early morning activities in this section. You close with a thanks, sincerely, have a good day, that sort of thing, and your first and last name. Notice the spacing. Subject line is only the couple words. Introduction, greeting, you have a space. This is what I'm doing. There's a space. This is your assignment. Space, closing, and your first and last name. And again, when I say space, I mean an entire blank line. Not just hitting the space bar, you're hitting enter before you move on. Okay, so that is your assignment for the Part 2 section. You are sending me your paraphrased sentence on the morning activities of the life of a sumo wrestler, including the author credit, and get those into me. Okay, thanks guys.